Welcome to Learn English with Captain Binoy Varakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Devgiri, Calicut, Kerala. We learn about the consonants of received pronunciation, International Phonetic Alphabet. And so far we studied about the classification of consonants based on the place of articulation, and now of course we are discussing the classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation. And while discussing the classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation, we have so far studied some 5 categories. That is, we studied about the plosive consonants or the stop consonants. We also studied about the affricate consonants, and we also studied about the fricatives, and thereafter we studied the trill or the roar, and also we studied the lateral sounds. And now we have 3 more classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation, and they are the nasal consonants and the frictionless continuant, and of course the semivowels. And today in this lecture we discuss the nasal consonants, the frictionless continuants, and of course the semivowels. Let's begin this lecture with the discussion of the nasal consonants. When we discuss the nasal consonants, as the very term goes, okay, the nasal consonants are produced through the nasal cavity or the nostrils. Alright, so how are the nasal consonants articulated, or how are the nasal sounds produced? As we know, we studied in the beginning about the organs of speech, and we know about the oral cavity, the mouth cavity, and the nasal cavity, that is of course the nostrils. And when nasal sounds are produced, no air escapes through the mouth cavity or the oral cavity. Air is blocked somewhere in the mouth cavity, maybe between the lips or between the front of the tongue and the alveolum, or between the back of the tongue and the soft palate or velum. And now we have to understand the soft palate is lowered. When the soft palate is lowered, we know that the soft palate is of course the extreme end of the roof of the mouth. When the soft palate is lowered, the nasal cavity is open, or rather, okay, the nostrils, right, rather above the back of the tongue, above the root of the tongue, we have the opening in the higher area, and that area is open with the lowering of the soft palate, and the air can go without any obstruction onto the nasal cavity, and the air escapes through the nasal cavity. This is how, so we have understand the fact that, okay, number 1, the closure of the oral cavity somewhere in the mouth, the lowering of the soft palate, and of course the escape of air through the nasal cavity. This is how the nasal consonants are produced. And we have 3 nasal sounds in English. Let's look at the 3 nasal sounds. Okay, we are discussing the nasal sounds, and we know that there are 3 nasal sounds, and those 3 nasal sounds are number 1, okay, number 2, number 3, These are the 3 nasal sounds of International Phonetic Alphabet, or the received pronunciation. And let's look at how is the first sound as in my, me, moon, mango, men. Alright, all the initial sound is the nasal So when we say the sound both the lower and the upper lip come to a contact with each other. There is a closure between the lips and the air is let to go through the nasal cavity because the soft palate or the velum or the back of the roof of the mouth is lowered and air escape through the nasal cavity, and we can say that is a nasal sound. And we can also say that now that the closing of the oral cavity is between the active articulator lower lip and the passive articulator upper lip, we can say that is a bilabial nasal. Very important. Is a bilabial nasal. Okay, it's very clear. So we know the first nasal sound. The first nasal sound is produced by a closure of the oral passage between lower lip and upper lip. Bilabial nasal. Air is just coming through the nasal cavity and we have the sound So first nasal sound is clear to us. It's a bilabial nasal. And now we move on to the second nasal sound, that is the nasal consonant no, neat, never, noon. Next, So when we make this particular sound, the entire rim, outer rim of the tongue, the front and the tip and the outer rim of the edge or the brink of the tongue is lifted up against the roof of the mouth, and we have a closure between the tongue, the entire brink edge of the tongue, and of course the roof of the mouth. No air can go out through the nasal cavity, the oral cavity, because of the closure between the outer edge of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. And we say, see, it is the tongue is against the alveolar ridge, and of course the entire rim or the brink of the tongue is against the roof of the mouth, to be very precise, the alveolar ridge. And we say and we can say that the air is escaping through the nasal cavity. Hence we say that is an alveolar nasal, because the closure in the mouth is between the active articulator, the tongue, and of course the roof of the mouth, to be very precise, the alveolum, and we call the second nasal consonant an alveolar nasal sound. And now we move on to the third nasal sound, that is of course the sound. This particular sound doesn't come in the beginning of any word in English. Often we have this word either in the middle or at the end, and we say ring, sing, song, singing, bring, ringing. Alright, so the in case of the third and the last nasal consonant, the closure is between the back of the tongue. Entire back of the tongue is lifted up, and the back of the tongue is against the soft palate or the velum. Okay, and we can say that the closure we have there at the back of the tongue and the velum, and no air can go through the mouth cavity, oral cavity. Entire air comes through the nostrils or nasal cavity, and we have what is called a velar nasal consonant. Velar nasal consonant. So why velar? Because the active articulator is the back of the tongue and the passive articulator is the velum or the soft palate, and we say alright, clear? Okay, and these are the three nasal consonants of received pronunciation or International Phonetic Alphabet Chart. They are as in my, as in okay, as in now, alright, now, N-O-W, now, alright, and as in song, alright. So these are the three nasal sounds, okay? And with this we wind up our discussion of the nasals or nasal consonants, and we proceed to the frictionless continuant. The frictionless continuant, okay? So in the previous lecture we studied about the trill or roll, and we know that the trill or roll is the r sound in, of course, ran, rat, etc. And the same sound is, of course, known as a frictionless continuant, because based on the manner of articulation, these consonants, the frictionless continuants, are articulated with, of course, no friction. In fact, these are consonants which can be prolonged for a long time without any audible friction, no friction, okay? And we say r, like in red, red. Frictionless consonant is r, okay? Like in red, like in, of course, R-I-G-H-T, right, r. We have the r, the occurrence of a series of r. And this particular occurrence of a series of r is known as continuant, r. Frictionless continuant, no friction. In the case of, okay, we have f, v, h, the, s, z, sh, r, h. We have friction. Air is escaping with friction. But in the case of r, no friction. It is a continuum. It's only you can only continue right there. Right, frictionless continuant, right? So the soft palate is raised, closing the nasal passage, and the articulators are brought near each other. They are not close enough to produce any friction. And we have the sound red, right, and we say that this is in fact is a post-alveolar frictionless continuant. And in fact we studied also the fact that this particular sound is also known as the trill or the roll, and it has of course different features like the linking R, the intrusive R, okay, and of course sometimes it's audible, sometimes it's not audible, alright, all that we studied. And now we come to the last classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation, that is of course semivowels. Okay, semivowels are also known as approximants, okay, approximants, or rather semivowel is also an approximant. And what is an approximant? We have to understand what is an approximant. An approximant is in fact a sound which is articulated with the feature of half the feature of a vowel sound and half the feature of a consonant sound, and because of that reason we call them semivowels. They are not completely vowel. They are not completely vowel, they are not completely consonants also. They are the half quality of a vowel, so also half quality of a consonant. But semivowels are always treated like consonants, okay? So they are consonants, they are not vowels. This is again another very important factor. And we have of course two approximants or semivowels in English, and they are the v sound, okay? The v as in water, we have the v, and the ear sound, okay, as in of course yes, okay, or yellow, all right. So we have these are the semivowels or approximants. Were in water, were in wonder, why, what, when, where, wonderful, water. So also ear. So they are gliding sounds. They are just like the vowel glides, okay? Like the diphthongs, right? Gliding sounds. Feature number one is they are the gliding sounds. In their articulation, in the articulation of the approximants or semivowels, the speech vowels glide from one vowel position to another. The semivowels in English are, okay, v and ear. In the production of v, what happened is the glide is from the tongue position of approximately oo, and in the case of ear, the glide is approximately from the position of e. Okay, we can say that the approximant is of course a glide from the vowel approximately the vowel that is of course oo, and we know that oo is a rounded back, close, long sound, and okay, is produced, okay, halfway through there is a glide. Initially, the back of the tongue is lifted, and of course, it's coming very close to the roof of the mouth, and of course, suddenly we have of course the rounding of the lips, and suddenly we just go and utter the sound w. So it is something like water. All right, that's why we say that this is of course articulated with the rounded lips, right? So okay, we are about to say ooh. Suddenly we go for a glide, and we don't say ooh, we say w, and we have water. This is the way it is produced, right? Rounded lips, we have rounding, and we have to understand the fact that all words in English beginning with the W, all right, like in water, okay, so it is to be articulated with the rounded lips, like in water, right? Okay, so it has the half the feature of a vowel. What is that feature? That is of course this particular semivowel is articulated with the vowel limit. We have to remember that, okay, the vowel limit required for the articulation of a vowel. Like the height of the tongue is of course exactly that of the height required for the articulation of ooh, and we say water, wonder, want, why, where. Alright, this is the reason why we call it a semivowel or an approximant. We call it an approximant because it has half the quality of a vowel and half the quality of a consonant. That is about the first one, that is of course w. Now we discuss the second semivowel or approximant, that is ear. Just like the first semivowel w, ear is having half the quality of the vowel sound E. Okay, E. We are about to say the sound E, but we don't say E. We have the vowel limit or the lifting of the tongue, okay, like exactly like that of E, but we don't complete our articulation of E, but we stop it halfway through and we make the sound a different sound. That's of course a consonant sound. So it has the vowel limit of a vowel sound E, and of course consonant. The rest is of course the aspect or characteristic of a consonant. We say yesterday, yellow, yahoo, yield, yield. Alright, so we can say that the approximant or the semivowel here is a glide from E. This is all we have to learn about the approximants or semivowels. We can say that semivowels are gliding sounds. In their articulation, the speech vowels glide from one vowel position to another. The frictionless continuants and semivowels together may be called approximants. That is of course the frictionless continuant error. They could be called approximants because such sounds are articulated with a stricture of open approximation. That is of course the vowel limit. The gap between them is wide enough for the air to escape without any friction. Okay, so now we have studied the approximants or the semivowels, and with that we can come to the end of our discussion of the classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation. Let us just consolidate and conclude everything. We have 8 categories of consonants based on the manner of articulation. First we have the plosive sounds, and we have 6 plosive sounds in English, and they are p, b, ch, d, k, and g. 6 plosive sounds. Alright, then we have affricate sounds, 2 affricate sounds. They are ch and j. Alright, ch and j. And we have of course 9 fricative sounds, very important. 9 fricative sounds, and they are f, v, th, l, s, z, sh, l, and h. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 fricative sounds, and we have trill or roar, just 1, and that is the sound, as in ran away, river, sorry. Alright, and now we have the lateral sound, just 1, that is the lateral sound, air escaping through the sides of the tongue. And now of course we have the nasals. There are 3 nasals, that is of course n, and n. Okay, the 3 nasals. And now of course we studied the frictionless continuant. Same, the frictionless continuant is the sound. And now of course we studied the semivowels of English, and we have 2 semivowels. They are the v and the y. Okay, so we have studied the classification of consonants, and next day we discuss all the consonants of RP. You know that we have 20 vowel sounds and 24 consonants, and we go for a 4-term label for 20. We did that, and similarly next session we go for a 3-term label for the 24 consonants based on, of course, number 1, the state of glottis, voiced or voiceless. Number 2, place of articulation, okay, that is bilabial, labio, dental, dental likewise. And similarly, the manner of articulation. This way, we will describe the entire 24 consonants. Next session, with this we conclude today's lecture. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you.